Clemson leans on Adam Randall to beat Troy 27-16. We'll talk about it right here in the postgame show on Locked On Clemson.
You are Locked On Clemson, your daily podcast on the Clemson Tigers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Tiger fans? Morgan Thomas here, Clemson fan, Clemson grad, host and producer right here on Locked On Clemson. And so happy you could be a part of this post-game show. Thank you so much for making Locked On Clemson your first listen of the day. And you know how we do it here on Locked On, your team every day. Big salute out there to my everydayers, my subscribers, for being a part of this show. You know how we do it here Monday through Friday. And then during the season, after the games, I have committed to doing a post-game show with you to get some insights, give you my thoughts on the game, get your thoughts on the game, and hopefully be able to kind of get a discussion going in the chat. So thank you so much, whether you're listening over on podcast or whether you're on YouTube or wherever. Thank you so much. If you haven't already subscribed and hit the like button, please do so. It'll help out with the algorithm. You know how that thing goes. And also, if you're subscribed, you'll never miss another episode because you'll get a notification there. So make sure you do that. Before we jump in, though, on the show, I do have to tell you that today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Football season is here. Visit the FanDuel app today. Start planning your bets now. And I see you getting in the comments so far. If you haven't already done so, get into the live stream, get into the comments. Let me know where you are from and what your grade would be for the team after this game. You know, it was definitely one of those games where there were a lot of boo birds out there, as my dad would say at the beginning of the game. Really, the whole first half, it was a pretty frustrating first half for Clemson. Did not score a touchdown in the first half. So 4 quarters gone through from the previous game to this game to where they were not able to score a touchdown, got a field goal in the second quarter, and they went into halftime losing down 16-3. 16-3 to Troy, which, you know, I told you if you watched the show on Friday, I did a little bit of a preview. I told you that I thought it would be difficult for Clemson to kind of get the running game going against Troy. And it was a little bit at first for them to kind of get any kind of rhythm. I didn't really suspect that the passing game would still be a problem that it is, but it is definitely a concern continuing. There's more questions than there are answers right now for the Clemson offense. Is it the offensive line still? A lot of people could argue that. Is it the quarterback? A lot of people could argue that. Is it the wide receivers? You could probably argue that too. And then ultimately, is it Garrett Riley and the play calling? I think you could really argue any point you wanted to go on, and it would be a rational explanation. So whatever you want to go to the water cooler on Monday at your work and say, hey, this is the problem, I think you got a valid point across the board. And that's what's probably even more a concern for me, is that it's hard to say what one area is hurting the other areas the most. You know, you could really make an argument for everything out there. Cade starting off slow, offensive line not holding up, the running game not getting going, the play calling being kind of bland, the wide receivers making a drop here or there, you know. So there's all kinds of things that you could really, really kind of nitpick for the Clemson offense. Ultimately, they were able to get it going, and it was kind of laughable at some point. My wife was asking me, like, hey, Morgan, why are you laughing right now? Your team just did something bad. And I'm like, you know what? It really is to that point where it's kind of like a comedy of errors. They started out really kind of like, oh boy, when I was listening to the pregame show going into the game, I was hearing people picking Clemson plus the points. And, I told you on Friday, I told you on Thursday on 105.5 The Roar, I did not like 33.5, which is what we had on the Roar Pick'em contest. I think it got down to like 31.5. I didn't like that either. I don't like that with any team, to be honest with you, especially early on in the season. 30-something points to give in a spread. I didn't like that at all. So I actually took Troy, not because I wanted them to win, and I definitely didn't want Troy to walk away not even needing 33.5 points because they were winning there at the beginning of the game. So I was a little bit, I don't know. I wouldn't say nervous. I was just more frustrated, but frustrated to the point where I was kind of like going to get something to drink and just laughing. I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it got to a point where the fans in the stadium were just booing, and in a lot of ways, I know a lot of people feel like that's a little bit controversial, but in my opinion, you sit here and you've got this, not only the roster, not only the coaching staff, but the roster is getting paid and paid good money, have better cars than us, have better salaries than us. And they're playing a game, and they're in college, which is also kind of a fun time in your lifetime, so they have a lot of things going for them. And to put up another bad game against a team you should be overmatched with, while they still had some talent on the team on a Troy sideline, it should have been one that wasn't as bad to start out the gate. But this team still has a big problem, and that is starting out the gate poorly. I don't know if it's Garrett Riley or if it's Clemson or whatever it is, but even before Garrett Riley, it just seems like Clemson's been a slow starting team. You remember, it kind of feels maybe there might have been, even the Trevor and Deshaun years, some of those games were kind of slow going, and then you're like, okay, I know they're going to get it together. But now with this team, you don't really know if they're going to get it together or not, but they finally allowed the running game to take over. Clemson finished with, overall a pretty good running game, 120 yards rushing. Adam Randall finished with 21 attempts, which is one of the things that we wanted to see. Still, I don't necessarily think I wanted 21. I'd like to see more rotation with the other guys, but Adam Randall is starting to become a guy I think other Clemson fans are acknowledging, as I have. If you've watched any of my podcasts, I've told you that when I saw him in practice, he looked the role. He looked like he was putting in the work, putting in the time in the film room and in his body and in his skill set to be a good runner. And he's hitting the hole properly. He gets the handoff and he just goes with some aggressiveness and spark. He just doesn't always have a blocker in front of him to help him out. But 5.3 yards per carry, that's above what you would want. Remember what I said, the Locked On Clemson goal for rushing is at least 4.5 yards per carry for your lead running back if you want to be a top rushing team in the country, and 5.3 is there. Now, it is, again, against Troy, but I did tell you on Friday that Troy should be able to push Clemson a little bit in the running attack because their defense was set up to stop the run more than the pass. So once Clemson got the run game going, it did seem like they settled in. This is what I tweeted over on X, or whatever you would say, posted on X, is that we were sold the bill of goods of the dirt raid, right? That's what Dabo said Garrett Riley was going to be, dirt raid. Well, dirt raid implies that you're running first to air it out later. And that's really how this team needs to work, in my opinion. They have to be committed 110% to the running game, and they have to let their offensive linemen know they still need a reality check on the offensive line. They've got to tell the offensive linemen, hey, you need to be knocking these guys back and putting them into the ground and not just kind of playing handsy and pass blocking in a run situation. It still looks like they're pass blocking in a run situation, or they're playing handsy, with the defender in the running situations. No, they need to lock on quickly, find someone and slam them. They need to get them to the ground, drill them down, because that's what Adam Randall's trying to follow through with. As the team began to run the ball more heavily towards in the second half and towards the end of the game, that opened up the big pass play with Bryant Wesco. And so Clemson's run game, again, to me, is their identity, at least at the beginning. not pass heavy, what we saw at the end of the LSU game. There definitely need to be a team that sticks with the run game and continues to move through that. But as a commenter gets in, 2 games in, not really impressed with anything, I would agree with that as well. It's difficult to be impressed after just an 11-point win against Troy, because now they're going on the road against Georgia Tech, who seems to know what they want to do and have an identity and have some confidence. So I'm actually at this point, I think it's probably safe, and I'm not trying to be emotional here, post-game emotional, but I think it's probably safe to put Clemson on upset alert against Georgia Tech. It's at Atlanta. It's a road game, first ACC game of the season. And so after what you've seen so far, I hope that you probably agree with me, and I'm not being crazy here, but it does seem like this is one of those games coming up next weekend that should be kind of scary if you're a Clemson fan, because of all those stakes involved and because of the lack of confidence, as Silver Fox in the comments mentions, the lack of confidence in this team. All right, I'm past my break here. I've got to go to my first break. I'm going to go through the show typically like a normal setup show, so I can edit it and put it in as a podcast for those that don't get to listen to it live. So thank you so much for being a part of the show here, and we'll go on a break real quick for our sponsors. All right, it's the weekend. It's time to look back at this weekend's MVP, or this game's MVP, Who Delivered, powered by DoorDash. Just like you can win every Saturday with DoorDash Streaks, saving more every time you order. These players delivered when it mattered most. Let's break it down. So for Clemson, the player of choice for me is for this game is probably going to be Adam Randall. I mean, Clemson needs a running game. As I mentioned, having that 5.3 yards per carry is what they needed to establish, and they did so, and he ran really well. You could probably throw in a couple of defenders as well, because they were very opportunistic and had a ton of turnovers, 3 interceptions in this game, so that's hats off to them as well. I don't want to ignore the defense, but for me, considering the last weekend was a lack of running, and this weekend they actually figured it out, albeit it took them 2 halves to figure it out. They were able to do so. So if you're watching this game, or you go back and if you missed it and you rewatch it, you'll see the team kind of slowly adapted into the run and got much better. So just like Adam Randall was able to deliver for Clemson this weekend, DoorDash delivers on your Saturdays with DoorDash Streaks. You can save every Saturday you order, stack it up all season, and you could save up to $250, including $100 in DoorDash credits. Order this Saturday. Keep the streak alive. Fuel your game day only with DoorDash. Terms apply. Promo period ends on November 18th. And this episode is also brought to you by Mazda. Mazda crafts cars for those who choose to do more than simply move. They follow what moves them every time they drive, and that's what makes Mazda stand out. They go beyond safety, style, and performance to deliver a driving experience that feels alive in every detail. As an athlete focuses on every detail, Mazda does the same. From metallic accents to hand-stitched Napa leather, you can feel it the moment that you get behind the wheel. The smooth handling, the intuitive controls, and the standard all-wheel drive on every crossover SUV. It's the small details that make the big plays, and just like there's more to every player, there's more to a Mazda vehicle. Mazda, move and be moved. All right, let's get back into the discussion. I'm going to jump over to the comments and see what you got there. If you haven't already, make sure you get into the chat over on the YouTube channel on live and tell me where you're from, because I always love to know where you're from. You can put in your zip code, whatever you want to do, and then also put in what your grade would be for the game. We got a C- so far. We have a D+ so far. We have Ron gets in, says offensive line bad. He would give the offensive line a Z. I don't think, Ron, I don't know if they grade on a A to Z scale, but I'll give you the A to Z scale because it's your grade. It's your grade. Actually, he gets in and says offensive line D. Cade Klubnik a C-. Looks like I don't know. I kind of get mixed up. Backfield D. So still, as you can tell, the fan base is pretty frustrated with the offense still. Not really sure what they're trying to do, or not really sure like what their key players are. It just seems like they're still figuring out their identity and what actually works. For me, it's kind of head scratching, because didn't they figure this out during practice in the spring? Didn't they figure this out during practice in the fall? No, it seems like they waited until they got to the live games, and nothing that they thought was going to work works. And what is evident to me is that this is a dirt raid team, which is what we thought they were trying to be. I mean, this is a team that needs to start rushing the ball first and get that established. Now, when you think about that, though, overall, the performance against Troy was not satisfactory. I mean, let's look at the game comparison on the stats overall. Total yards, 301 for Troy, 316 for Clemson. That is not what you're expecting from a team that should be outmatched. First downs, 16 first downs for Troy, 17 for Clemson. Again, not something that you should be expecting from a team that should be outmatching and out-talenting a team like Troy. Now, Troy has some playmakers, as I mentioned. If you watch the show on Friday, again, my biggest point is I want you to be the most informed Clemson fan when you walk into the stadium on Saturday. You should have known about Lafayette. Lafayette was all over the field. You should have known about Ra Thomas. Ra Thomas was doing well at the very beginning, and Medina in the middle until he got that penalty there for, I think it was unsportsmanlike. But first downs, pretty even. Total yards, pretty even. Total plays, Troy had more total plays than Clemson, 55 total plays. Still a huge concern. As we've mentioned many times in the past, when you have such a small amount of plays, it forces your offense to play even more perfect. They have to take advantage of the small amount of options that they have. Yards per completion were much better this time, 10.9 yards per completion, but still Troy had more yards per completion than Clemson, which is just absolutely baffling. I mean, Troy had 223 yards receiving. Clemson had 196. So Troy outpassed them, didn't outrush them. But just, it goes back to, what is Clemson's identity on offense? I don't know. I don't even know what we really know with it right now. Overall for the team, sack adjusted rushing yards, 4.4 average, which is, again, what you want. So that is 4.5 to about top 50 in the country. I'm not saying Clemson needs to be the best rushing team in the country, because you really don't want that, but they need to be in the top 50 at least. And so having a team average rush sacks adjusted at 4.4 is better, but still not the best. Time of possession, guys and gals, time of possession, still lost the time of possession game, 26 minutes. So just 4 more minutes than they did last week. And so Troy had 33 minutes and 1 second, which is more than half the game Troy had the ball. Again, I'm not really sure what to make of this game. Anybody who picked minus 33 for Clemson, I think you were nuts to begin with. You definitely don't listen to this show if you picked minus 33.5 for Clemson, or even minus 31.5 for Clemson. There was no reason for you to be that confident against a team like Troy, and especially in the transfer portal era. You can't just mark up a team, oh, they're not a Power 5 team or whatever, this or that. Troy, we didn't know much about what we were going to get, but I did not have any confidence from a Clemson offensive perspective to outscore someone by 32 or 34. I mean, to me, you want to talk about orange colored glasses. I mean, at that point, I think you're employed by Clemson University if you're picking, plus 33 or minus 33.5 for in this case. I mean, I would never. I'm probably not taking Clemson for quite some time when it comes to the picks against the spread. We do it over on the Roar on 105.5, and I'm probably not taking Clemson minus if they are. If Clemson's plus against Georgia Tech, I'm kind of scared about that game overall. Again, I'm circling that one as an upset alert. That's where I'm going with this game. That kind of bothers me to say that as a Clemson fan and as a Clemson grad, but that's kind of where we are with this team. Now, on the positive, when you look at the defense, though, Wade Woodaz led the tackles, total 11 tackles. Ricardo Jones had a great game. I'd probably give him the game ball or the star of the game. He had an interception and was second on the list in tackles. Ronan Hannafin, again, I mentioned to you, he's like the Sammy Brown of safeties. He's just everywhere. Now, is he perfect? Ronan's not perfect, right? He literally just became defense at the end of last season. So he's not perfect, but he had an interception and he had a ton of tackles. He was in on everything, So had a couple of, he had a pass breakup and an interception. And so I like what I see from Ronan Hannafin, but I understand the football purists out there that are saying, well, I would not say that it's good to brag about a safety or both of your safeties, Jones and Hannafin, being top 1, 2, and 3 on your tackling list. That is true. That means that the offense is getting to the second level more often than not. And I'll say this about Clemson's defense before we go to our second break and final break of the night, but it does feel a little more Brent Venables-ish. It feels a little bit of the bend don't break style. And I'm perfectly fine holding Troy to 16 points, y'all. I really am. I mean, that's respectable. This whole thing about playing from behind going into the third quarter is ridiculous, though. This offense is on red alert right now, red flag. I want to be marked safe from the Clemson offense because honestly, you wouldn't even have to mark yourself safe from the Clemson offense because they're a threat to no one right now. So a lot of things they've got to fix on the offense. The defense, though, is bend, don't break. They're holding strong. I mean, the frustration at the beginning, I understand, was because of the easy, quick touchdown from, really to the running back from Jamal Anderson, kind of like 20 yards behind the play. So that was kind of frustrating. You notice he got taken out of the game for a little while after that. So, they gave him a shot, gave him a little bit of a leash, and it didn't work out well. So they settled in a little bit after that. And as the game went on, again, this has been don't break defense. And this is an opportunistic defense that is going to get turnovers and try to get momentum. Again, you have, Ricardo Jones with the turnover and the interception, Ronan Hannafin with another interception. And then we got to give a shout out to Ashton Hampton with his interception as well. So good time from the Clemson defense. A lot of positives there that I can take from. So, hey, let's go to our second break real quick, get to our sponsors, as you know we will, as I record this and live now, and then we'll post it up on the podcast for anybody after this. Hey, Locked On Clemson fans, are you still paying full price for gas? Stop leaving money behind. Get real cash back every time you fill up with the free Upside app. Simply download the free Upside app in the App Store or Google Play right now and start earning cash at the pump today. Use my limited time promo code FOOTBALL, FOOTBALL, and get an extra 25 cents back per gallon on your first fill up. You could make up to $300 a year just from buying the gas you already needed. At first, I thought this was too good to be true, but it's totally legit. Real people are getting paid just to make their daily commutes, and you can too. Plus, you can cash out anytime in your bank account, in PayPal, or an e-gift card to Amazon or other brands. Don't let this offer drive on by. Download the free Upside app now using my limited time promo code FOOTBALL for a limited time 25 cent per gallon bonus. That's promo code FOOTBALL, FOOTBALL. Offers vary by user and location. Go to upside.com for terms and conditions. And finally, I want to give a shout out to my final sponsor of the show. That'll be FanDuel. The NFL season is finally here. FanDuel is making sure you are ready for kickoff with a can't miss offer right now. New customers can bet just $5. And if your first bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Now, you know how FanDuel is. You can do fantasy, you can do same game parlays, you can jump in on live game action as it unfolds. Every time you get in, you can find ways to make the games more exciting for you, or keep an eye on some of your opposing teams, or even your opposing lineups. It's quick, easy, and simple to use. The best way to add a little bit more energy on Sundays or Saturdays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com, and place your first $5 bet. All right, let me jump in the chat real quick and see what anybody's got. Hey, again, if you're in the chat, if you're new to the show, thank you so much. You know, the everydayers out there maybe already know this, but if you don't have any background on me, I do part-time over on 105.5 The Roar. I've worked on Mickey Plyler's show in the morning, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., being his producer. I have my own show on the radio Tuesday nights from 7 to 9 with intern Ashley and producer Ramona after Walt Deptula and Road Rage. So you'll hear me on Tuesday nights. And then I'm here on Locked On Monday through Friday, for a 25 to 30-minute podcast all about Clemson, nothing but Clemson. That's all I really focus on because that's what I love the most. But you can check me out in all those ways. And when I'm not doing those things, I'm out trying to be a pilot. So I quit my corporate job last year to become an airline pilot, and currently a CFI, trying to get a job. But, so again, back to the Clemson game. Thank you so much to the everydayers for being a part of the show and tuning in and being a part of this live. What did I like about Clemson and the passing game? Well, I like that Cade Klubnik was 75% from completion percentage, because what he had 50% before was no bueno. You don't want that. 18 to 24, 196 yards, a little bit over 10 yards per throw, 2 touchdowns. He did have an interception that was frustrating for sure, but he rebounded from that. Still a lot of frustration around Cade. It just seems like he's still not as comfortable as you'd like. What happened when he got that big touchdown to Bryant Wesco? Well, one, they established the run. And then 2, he stayed in the pocket, got hit, and threw a dime to Bryant Wesco in the end zone. So that's what he's got to do. I mean, he actually had some of his best throws against LSU were when he was getting hit by Whit Weeks right as he released. So maybe, just maybe, Cade's going to have to come to a realization that, hey, I'm just going to have to get hit in order for this to work. Because the offensive line is just all over the place right now. You can't really trust them a ton. What do we say on the radio this week? You have 5 nickels and not 25 cents. You have 5 nickels and not quarter, right? That's kind of how it feels again. You really don't know what you're getting. They had the Braden Jacobs experiment on the left tackle that didn't work out as well as they'd want, but I don't knock him too much because he's a true freshman. He got some good reps there, but Tristan Lee was out. So then they finally had to move Colin Sadler over. Colin Sadler, I think, did a little bit better on left tackle than he does on left guard. I'm not really sure why, but still a lot of frustration from the offensive line. I don't know if I'm not an offensive line expert, so I'm not going to pretend to know what's going on, but it did seem good that they got into something where they could establish the run later on in the game and just go straight to that, because that's what was helping them. So the defense was bend, don't break, got the turnovers where they needed to. And then, Clemson, on the other hand, started the running game going. And I told you, I said, hey, don't mark Adam Randall out yet. Don't mark him out yet, because, he still has that style of running game that you want. When you watch him run the ball, he runs with passion, he runs with aggressiveness, and he runs downhill, as they say. He keeps those feet moving. He's going to hit you. Now, hopefully he can stay healthy. I do think they need to rotate a little better. I wasn't expecting him to get 21 carries. I would like for him to get 15. But I like Adam Randall to keep you going. And again, it's what you got, it's what you got. So you got to go with it. So that's really kind of what I liked from the game. I'm going to look in the chat and see what other people are saying. We got Charles saying Adam Randall, he feels like he's solid. Dan says, I'm worried about my Tigers. Yeah, I can feel that too. David says he'd love to have, in many ways, he'd love to have Brent Venables back. I mean, I like Tom Allen so far. It's working. It's working. It's keeping the team subdued as long as possible. But this time of possession thing is still a big concern for me. Charles said he thinks Dabo Swinney called the second half. I don't know if that's true or not, but I did have a couple people text me and say they saw Dabo with the play call sheet in the second half more than they saw him in the first half for sure. So, maybe he did call some plays. I don't know. I'm not 100% sure if that is the case, but they've got to figure something out to get started out the gate a little bit better. You always say like the first couple of plays are your scripted plays. So I'm still got a huge head scratcher on why the scripted plays seem to be the ones that are the worst, like coming right out the gate seem to be as frustrating as possible. Again, for a second week in a row. And really going into last season, it seemed like Clemson's just a slow burn on their offense. And I'm not really sure why that is. If it's the offensive line, if it's the, quarterback or wide receivers or whatever it may be, they have to figure something out. Now, when you look at the rest of the next upcoming games for Clemson, obviously they're going to go on the road and they're going to play Georgia Tech at Georgia Tech, a lunchtime game, 12 p.m. on the 13th. That's one that I'm kind of worried about. Then they play Syracuse back home on the 20th, and then they have a bye week. So that'll end your September. Georgia Tech at Georgia Tech, and then Syracuse. For me, I gotta say, I do have Georgia Tech as an upset alert for Clemson. If they're even not even a favorite, I don't know. But then you also have to kind of put a little red mark on or highlight around Syracuse, because while Syracuse struggled today as well, Fran Brown, did you see what he did after the game? Fran Brown, after the game, had his entire team running suicides while the fans were still in the stadium. And I got to tell you, I love it. That's what I want to see from a head coach that doesn't put up with any crap. And in a lot of ways, you kind of want to see that from Dabo Swinney and say, hey, guys, you got to snap out of this trance and maybe even run Garrett Riley out there. And I've talked to a couple people behind the scenes, and I wanted to get your thoughts as well, too. And I'm about to end the show here because we're beyond 30 minutes. I don't want to keep you too long because I know you got other things to do. But Tom Allen is in the press box. When Clemson was going to national championships, what did they have? They had one guy on the field to get the pulse of the game, to get the feeling. And then they had one guy in the box, the Tony Elliott in the box. Maybe, just maybe, Garrett Riley needs to go to the box. Maybe this is the time they've got to do something, They got to do something. They got to move. They've got to make some sort of adjustment. The Jimmies and Joes, in a lot of ways, that's who you have. They are who they are. And some of them may be maxing out. Some of these offensive linemen, now they're in their final year. Cade Klubnik in his final year. Maybe they're just maxed out. Maybe this is as talented as they can get, but maybe they can be put in a little bit of a better situation if the offensive coordinator can see the whole field more. I don't know who is ever in the box for him. Maybe I'd rather have him in the box. Now, that's just a suggestion that I've heard behind the scenes from others that feel as if it's time to get someone up there, get your guy up there making those play calls that can see the entire field, because whatever's working right now it's not going to be sustainable because this season is more difficult. You've got at Georgia Tech, to me, difficult game. Hosting Syracuse, to me, you at least have a difficult coach that's going to coach his guys up. Belichick, I'm not worried about. Boston College, not super worried about, but those are both away games. So you just never know with a conference away game. And then at the end of October, you have SMU. You got to be worried about them. You got to be. SMU knows their identity on offense. So you got to be worried about that payback game too. That's a payback game from the ACC championship game. So there's going to be a lot on the line. Now, thankfully, it's against Clemson at home, but that's another one that I'm circling. Duke's not a pushover. I believe they lost to Illinois today, but Duke's not a pushover. And then Florida State, again, Gus Malzahn. If anything you could say about Gus Malzahn, I mean, he's 110% bought into his system, and his system fits his quarterback. So you got to be a little bit worried there. And then are you not worried about Louisville? Now you get them. I already told you Louisville was the one that I circled. That's an ESPN. That's at 8 p.m. That's a Friday night. So, and then you finish up the season with at South Carolina, who we're talking about Lenore Sellers as a Heisman hopeful. I'm telling you, this schedule is tough for this team. So whatever the offense has to do, you're not going to be able to get new players. So what does the offensive staff have to do to reset this and fix this? You've got your seniors that have pretty much shown you a duck is a duck is a duck, right? Believe it. That's what they are doing. That's what they are, So I don't think that you can teach much of an old dog a new trick in this case with these guys, some of these tenured guys. But what can you do to reset this offense? It's got to do something. They need a shock to the system. That's for sure. We were hoping that Troy would be that, but an 11-point win against Troy where you were losing for the first half of the game is not going to sit well, especially with the fan base. I mean, the Clemson fan base was booing the team, and honestly, I hate to say this, but rightfully so. Rightfully so, because it's deserved because of how lackluster they are as well. And speaking of the turnover the turnover with Cade Klubnik and the interception that ended up being a touchdown, right? I didn't talk about this, and this will be the last thing. It goes back to, I like that Cade Klubnik has that pocket presence, but it kind of goes back to staring down the guy, anticipating where he's going to throw before the play happens. I didn't see that as bad tonight or today, but it's one of those things where when you stay in the pocket, that's what's going to happen. You're going to have a batted ball every now and then. I always thought, one of the players that seemed to do really well with batted balls was Deshaun Watson, and I don't know if it was just luck or just his skill set, but to me, Deshaun rarely had those problems. He stayed in the pocket really well and rarely had batted balls. But, I think that's going to happen, but it is frustrating that it happened the way it did. That might have been the play where I went to to get something to drink and I just laughed it off because I thought it was ridiculous. But anyways, all right, everybody. Hey, I appreciate you being a part of the show. I know we got a ton of people in. Again, thank you so much. If you want to keep being a part of Locked On Clemson, you can just hit the like and subscribe button. You can listen to me and watch me every Monday through Friday here on the YouTube channel, or you can listen to me on the podcast. So go check that out. Every listen that you do helps make this show more visible to other fans, but also helps me with Locked On and my results as well. And ultimately helps me pay for flight school and get me up in the air a little more in that Cessna. So, I appreciate all of it. I really do. I appreciate you, because you could listen to many other people and you choose to do that with me. So, I'll be back on Monday, and then on Tuesday night, I'll be on 105.5 The Roar from 7 to 9. So whether you're locally, you can listen to me there with Ashley, the intern, and if you're not locally, you can do that on the app as well. All right, so Before we go, I wanted to let you know that it is another big moment for Locked On college football fans. Locked On and Fire TV, they have presented now College Football Kickoff, your ultimate college football weekly preview show. Drake Toll of Locked On Big 12 leads the conversation alongside two-time AP Coach of the Year Gary Patterson, former college star Jesse Holley, and Locked On's local experts. A college football preview only Locked On can do. Catch College Football Kickoff every Thursday throughout the season only on Fire TV. All right, Tiger fans, hey, I appreciate it. We made it through. We made it through a tough first half. We made it through a lightning delay, and we made it through finally getting a win on the schedule. So hopefully brighter days are to come. And I'll see you on Monday, and I'll see you at the top of the hill.